The war continued for 6 more months, but everything had changed. The Battle of Sol broke the Coalition's back. The species that had come to destroy humanity were now fighting for survival. Commander Bora recovered from her injuries and returned to command. The Ghost Fleet, rebuilt and reinforced, pushed into alien space, but their mission had changed. They weren't conquering. They were liberating. Every human colony under alien control was freed. Every slave labor camp was destroyed. Every alien military base within 100 light-years of Earth was reduced to rubble. General Haywan's ground forces became legendary. They liberated colony after colony, always outnumbered but never outfought. Her soldiers moved like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles using terrain and tactics that confused alien defenders. On the colony of New Beijing, her 2,000 soldiers defeated a garrison of 15,000 Vraxel troops in 3 days. Young Su fought in those battles. He wasn't a natural soldier, but he had something more valuable. He understood how colonies worked, how they were built, where their weak points were. He became a valuable asset to Haywan's planning staff, helping identify targets and plan assaults. After each liberation, he sent messages to his sister He Jin on Earth. Another colony free. Another 1,000 people who can breathe without fear. Misun's rebellion continued to spread like wildfire across Melkoth space. 20 worlds were now in open revolt. Millions of slaves from dozens of species had risen up, armed with weapons smuggled in by human ships. The Melkoth Dominion collapsed into civil war, unable to fight both an internal rebellion and the human fleet. The Vraxil Empire sued for peace after humanity destroyed their primary shipyards. Without the ability to build new vessels, they couldn't sustain the war. Chancellor Vekthar was assassinated by his own officers when he refused to negotiate. The new leadership contacted Admiral Taeyang immediately, offering surrender. The Thalric Confederation, led by Elder Matriarch Selvara, withdrew from the conflict entirely. She made a public statement recognizing human sovereignty and condemning the treatment humanity had endured. It was a significant moment. The Thalric were the first alien species to treat humans as equals, but not everyone wanted peace. Some humans wanted revenge. They wanted to do to the aliens what had been done to them. They wanted to see alien worlds burn. Admiral Taeyang faced a decision that would define humanity's future. Human fleets were prepared to attack the Vraxil homeworld. The target was their capital city where billions lived. The plan was to destroy it completely, make an example that would terrify every species in the galaxy. Young Su, now a lieutenant in the fleet, stood in the briefing room where officers discussed the attack. He listened to them talk about casualty estimates with cold calculation, billions dead, an entire species traumatized. He stood up, interrupting the meeting. "Permission to speak, Admiral?" Taeyang looked at him. "Granted. If we do this, we become them. We prove they were right to treat us as animals. My sister once told me something after the council rejected our petition for rights. She said that we either kneel forever or stand and burn. We stood. We burned them. We won. But if we commit genocide, we're not victors. We're monsters." The room fell silent. Officers who had been eager for revenge looked uncomfortable. They remembered why they had fought. It was for freedom, for dignity, for the right to live without fear, not for the pleasure of inflicting suffering. Admiral Taeyang stood slowly. He was an old man now, looking even older after months of war. "Lieutenant Young Su is right. I've been thinking about this for weeks. We fought because we had no choice, because they forced us to, but we're better than them. We have to be, or what was the point of any of this?" He turned to his fleet commanders. "Send new orders. No attacks on civilian targets. No genocide. We'll accept the Vraxil surrender and establish peace terms. The war is over." Some officers protested. Some wanted to keep fighting, but most were relieved. They were tired. They had lost friends, family, pieces of themselves. They wanted to go home. 3 months later, Ambassador Jiwoo returned to the Galactic Council. But this time was different. She arrived on a human battleship flanked by Admiral Taeyang and Commander Bora. The Ghost Fleet waited in orbit above the council station. This was not a request. This was a demand. The council chamber was barely half full. Many species had withdrawn after their defeat. Those who remained looked at the human delegation with a mixture of fear and respect. Jiwoo stood before them, no longer humble, no longer begging. Humanity demanded equality. You laughed. We offered peace. You spat on it. So we took what we needed by force. From this day forward, humanity answers to no species but ourselves. We will trade with those who treat us as equals. We will ally with those who show us respect, and we will destroy anyone who threatens us or enslaves others. This is outrageous, a counselor protested weakly. You can't dictate terms to the council. Admiral Tae-yang stepped forward. We're not dictating to the council. We're informing you of reality. You have no power over us anymore. You never should have had that power. But you abused it, and now it's gone. The council had no choice. They granted humanity everything they demanded. Sovereign territory, equal representation, the right to military forces, reparations for decades of exploitation. It was everything Jiwoo had asked for a year ago. Everything they had denied. But some humans still weren't satisfied. A faction of officers planned to use the Ghost Fleet to establish human dominance over alien species. They wanted to rule the galaxy, not just be free of it. Admiral Tae-yang discovered the conspiracy and had to make his hardest decision. These were his own people, officers who had fought beside him. But they had learned the wrong lesson from the war. They thought might made right. They wanted to become the oppressors. He arrested them personally. At their trial, he spoke. We fought for freedom, not for the right to enslave others. If we become what we fought against, then every person who died for our freedom died for nothing. I won't allow that. None of us will. The conspirators were stripped of rank and imprisoned. It was a painful moment, but necessary. Humanity had to prove to itself and the galaxy that they were better than their former oppressors. 5 years passed. The galaxy had changed completely. Humanity was now a major power, but they used that power carefully. The Sol system was a fortress that no one would ever threaten again. Human colonies thrived, free and prosperous. The Ghost Fleet patrolled human space, ensuring security. But humanity did more than protect themselves. They became advocates for the enslaved. Species that suffered under oppression found refuge in human space. Commander Bora, now an admiral, led humanitarian missions to help freed slaves rebuild their societies. Jinwoo used his computer skills to expose corruption throughout the galaxy. His revelations brought down 3 governments and freed millions more slaves. Meeson became humanity's ambassador to the freed worlds. Her experience as a former slave gave her unique insight into helping others recover from trauma. General Haiwan trained defensive forces for species that sought human protection. She taught them not just how to fight, but how to think like humans, adaptable, creative, never giving up. Young-soo and Hye-jin stood together at a memorial station orbiting Earth. The walls were covered with names. Every human who had died fighting for freedom. Thousands of names, tens of thousands. They found Captain Daewon's name and placed a small flower beneath it. He had died in the Battle of Seoul, but his sacrifice had helped win the war. Ambassador Jiwoo spoke at the memorial dedication. They tried to break us. They tried to make us forget what we were. But humanity remembers. We remember every insult, every death, every moment of suffering. And we remember what we learned, that we are not prey. We are not servants. We are humanity. And when pushed far enough, we push back hard enough to reshape the galaxy. The crowd of humans and freed aliens listened in silence. They understood. The war had been terrible but necessary. It had taught the galaxy a lesson that would not be forgotten for generations. Across human space, in schools on 100 worlds, children learned about the war. They learned about the sacrifices, the battles, and the decision to show mercy, even when revenge was possible. They learned that strength without wisdom was tyranny, but strength with compassion could change the universe. The galaxy had learned the same lesson. Humanity had said enough, and the war ignited without warning. But when the flames died down, what remained was not ashes, but hope. Hope that species could be free. Hope that the strong could protect the weak. Hope that the cycle of oppression could be broken. On Earth, Admiral Tae-yang looked up at the stars. He was old now, ready to retire, but he felt satisfied. Humanity had won its freedom and kept its soul. They had become powerful without becoming monsters, and that, he thought, was victory enough. The Coalition fleet entered the Sol system with confidence bordering on arrogance. 5,000 warships in perfect formation, a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space. Chancellor Vekthar stood on his flagship bridge. watching Earth grow larger on the displays. The humans have gathered their entire fleet to defend their homeworld, his tactical officer reported. 400 ships. They're outnumbered 12 to 1. Vecthar laughed. They're desperate. This will be a massacre. Prepare to advance. We'll destroy their fleet, then glass their planet. Let this be a lesson to any species that forgets its place. The coalition fleet moved forward, entering the inner system. They passed the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. Nothing opposed them. The human fleet waited near Earth, looking tiny compared to the massive coalition force. Then Engineer Jae-hyun activated the Sol defense network. The asteroid belt came alive. Thousands of automated defense platforms powered up, hidden among the rocks for 3 decades. They opened fire simultaneously. Missiles launched. Railgun rounds streaked through space. Laser batteries carved through coalition ships. Ambush! Someone screamed on the coalition command channel, but it was just beginning. In the Oort cloud at the system's edge, launch stations fired relativistic kill vehicles. These were simple projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. They had no guidance systems, no fancy technology. They were just metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit coalition ships, the results were catastrophic. The kinetic energy was so enormous that ships simply vaporized. Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. Physics was merciless. The coalition fleet scattered, their perfect formation breaking. That's when they encountered the gravity mines. These devices, hidden in Saturn's rings, created powerful gravity wells that dragged ships off course. Several coalition vessels were pulled into Saturn itself, burning up in the massive planet's atmosphere. What is this? Vecthar roared. Where are these weapons coming from? His science officer checked the sensors, his voice shaking. They're everywhere, Chancellor. The entire solar system is weaponized. They've turned their home into a fortress. Then the moon opened fire. Luna's fist. The weapon Jae-hyun had spent 15 years building. The moon's surface split apart, revealing massive railguns built into the rock itself. They fired, and coalition ships died by the dozens. Commander Bora saw her moment. All ships engage! Tactic Thermopylae! Force them into the Narrows! The Ghost Fleet moved forward, not to meet the coalition head-on, but to create narrow engagement zones. They positioned themselves near debris fields, asteroid clusters, and the gravity wells of the inner planets. Places where the coalition's superior numbers meant nothing. The coalition fleet had to split up to chase them, moving through narrow passages where only a few ships could fight at once. And in those close quarters, human ships were superior. Their armor was thicker. Their redundant systems kept them fighting even when damaged. Their crews adapted faster than any alien species. Lieutenant Soo-jin led her fighter wing into the chaos. She was 23 years old and had trained her entire life for this moment. Her reflexes were incredible, her instincts even better. She flew her fighter through impossible spaces, dodging enemy fire by margins so thin her instrument screamed warnings. Her wing of 30 fighters targeted coalition capital ships, hitting their engines and weapon systems. They were like insects stinging giants, but they were deadly insects. Soo-jin destroyed 2 cruisers and damaged 5 more before she had to return to rearm. On Earth's orbital stations, the fighting became brutal when coalition forces tried boarding actions. Private Hyunwoo and his squad defended Station 7. The aliens were bigger, stronger, and had better weapons. But the humans fought with terrifying creativity. Hyunwoo and his friends had spent weeks rigging the station with traps. Corridors that suddenly vented to space. Gravity that reversed without warning. Bulkheads that dropped, crushing everything beneath them. The station itself became a weapon against the boarders. The aliens also learned that humans were vicious in close combat. Not because of strength, but because of their refusal to quit. Hyunwoo watched a fellow soldier take 3 lethal wounds and keep fighting long enough to kill her attacker before dying. The aliens had never seen that kind of determination. Captain Daewon received his orders directly from Admiral Tae-yang. His mission was simple and suicidal. Penetrate the coalition fleet center and deliver Project Hellfire. The Retribution and 12 other stealth ships carried humanity's ultimate weapon. Nuclear warheads with antimatter triggers, each one powerful enough to destroy a dozen ships. The problem was getting close enough to deploy them. Daewon's ships moved in complete silence, their stealth systems pushed to maximum. They drifted between larger battles, playing dead when necessary, hiding in debris fields. It took 2 hours of careful maneuvering, but they reached the coalition fleet center where the command ships clustered together. All ships. This is day 1. It's been an honor serving with you. Deploy on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. 13 stealth ships suddenly activated, dropped their payloads, and tried to jump away. The Coalition fleet realized what was happening and opened fire desperately. 10 stealth ships were destroyed immediately. The Retribution took a direct hit that crippled its jump drive. Then Project Hellfire detonated. The explosions were visible from Earth, brilliant lights that outshone the sun for several seconds. When the light faded, 800 Coalition ships were gone. Just gone. Vaporized by the antimatter blasts, the Coalition fleet reeled. Their formation was shattered. Their command structure was in chaos.
And they still hadn't reached Earth. Dr. Kyung-soo activated his final weapon.
The Prometheus Pulse. It used the faster-than-light communication network that connected all alien ships. When activated, it sent a massive electromagnetic pulse through every network connection simultaneously. Every alien ship in the Sol system went dark at once. Their navigation failed. Their weapons powered down. Their communication died. They drifted helplessly, blinded and deaf. The human ships were unaffected. They had been shielded, their systems isolated. Admiral Tae-Yang's voice echoed across the human fleet. No survivors in Sol space. Show them what happens when you threaten our home. The Ghost Fleet moved through the disabled Coalition vessels like death itself. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. Railguns fired at point-blank range. Missiles struck helpless targets. One by one, the Coalition ships died. Commander Bo-Ra watched from her bridge, her face grim. This was necessary, but it was also butchery. The aliens had come to destroy Earth, to genocide humanity. They deserved no mercy, but that didn't make it easier to watch. Of 5,000 Coalition ships, only 300 escaped. They jumped away in panic, their formation destroyed, their fleet shattered. The Battle of Sol was over. Humanity had won, but the cost was terrible. Earth's orbital infrastructure was in ruins. 40% of the Ghost Fleet was destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Thousands of human soldiers and pilots had died defending their home. Captain Daewon's Retribution had been destroyed. His crew was lost. Commander Bo-Ra was severely injured when a missile struck her bridge. She would survive, but she would carry the scars forever. Admiral Tae-Yang stood in his command center looking at the damage reports. They had won, but they were wounded, exhausted. Then a message came through. Elder Matriarch Selvara of the Thalric Confederation, one of the species that had attacked. She requested a ceasefire, negotiations, peace. Ambassador Jiwoo looked at Tae-Yang hopefully. They're ready to negotiate. We can end this. Tae-Yang was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, send them this message. You wanted war. Now you'll see it to the end. Jiwoo stared at him in shock. You're refusing peace? They came to exterminate us, Tae-Yang said, his voice hard. If we stop now, they'll rebuild and try again in 10 years. We need to make sure they never threaten us again. We need to make them fear us so deeply that the thought of attacking Earth makes them sick with terror. The war continued. The war exploded across 12 sectors in 48 hours. Admiral Tae-Yang had planned every strike carefully. His strategy was simple and brutal. Hit every major alien military base near human colonies before they could organize a defense. The Ghost Fleet split into smaller attack groups, each one targeting a different location. They struck like lightning, appearing without warning, destroying their targets and jumping away before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens had never seen warfare like this. They were used to formal battles, fleet against fleet. Humans fought like predators hunting prey. Commander Bo-Ra led the largest fleet group from the Indomitable Spirit. Her target was a massive Thalric supply depot that supported military operations across 8 systems. The depot was protected by 30 warships and defense platforms that could destroy anything that came close. Bo-Ra didn't attack head-on. That would be stupid. Instead, she split her forces. Half jumped in at maximum weapons range and started firing missiles. Lots of missiles. Hundreds of them. The Thalric ships moved to intercept, focusing all their attention on the obvious threat. They didn't see the other half of Bo-Ra's fleet until it was too late. Those ships had jumped in on the opposite side of the depot, hidden behind its bulk. They tore into the Thalric ships from behind, their railguns punching through rear armor. The Thalric fleet panicked. They tried to split their forces to face both threats, but that just made them easier to kill. Within 20 minutes, the depot was destroyed, and the Thalric fleet was scrap metal. That's how you use the enemy's expectations against them, Bo-Ra told her officers. They think we're honorable, that we'll fight fair. We don't care about honor, we care about winning. On the surface of Kepler Station, General Haywan led the ground assault to liberate human colonies. Her soldiers wore light armor and carried weapons designed for adaptability, not raw power. They were smaller than most alien soldiers, weaker in direct combat, but they were smarter. The Thalric garrison on Kepler thought they could hold the station easily. They had fortified positions, heavy weapons, and troops that could kill a human with a single blow. What they didn't have was experience fighting an enemy that refused to fight on their terms. General Haywan's soldiers didn't attack the fortifications. They infiltrated through maintenance tunnels. They poisoned water supplies. They hacked into the station's environmental controls and started venting atmosphere from sections where Thalric troops were stationed. They used the station itself as a weapon. Young-Su joined the fight. After the mine collapse that killed his friends, he had connected with the human resistance. Now he led Haywan's soldiers through the tunnels he knew better than anyone. He showed them the weak points, the hidden passages, the places where the Thalric would never think to look. The liberation of Kepler Station took 3 days. The Thalric garrison outnumbered the human forces 5-1, but they never stood a chance. General Haywan's soldiers struck from everywhere and nowhere, turning the station into a nightmare maze where death waited around every corner. When it was over, Young-Su stood in the main plaza where he had worked as a slave for 8 years. Dead Thalric soldiers lay everywhere. Human colonists were cheering, crying, hugging each other. They were free. Young-Su sent a message to his sister Hyejin. We won. Kepler is ours. On Melkoth Prime, something even more significant was happening. Mi-san had been a slave on that world for 12 years, working in factories that built components for alien warships. When human weapons started appearing in the slave quarters, smuggled in by rebel networks, she became a leader. The uprising started at midnight. 10,000 slaves across 50 facilities rose up simultaneously. They seized weapons, killed their overseers, and took control of the factories. The Melkoth had never faced internal rebellion before. Their society was built on strict order and control. They had no idea how to respond to chaos. Mi-san led her group to the Planetary Communication Center. They broadcast a message to every Melkoth world. We are the enslaved, and we are done serving. Any species that wants freedom, rise up. We will fight beside you. Within a week, 3 Melkoth worlds were burning. Rebellion spread like wildfire. The Melkoth military, stretched thin fighting the human fleet, couldn't contain the internal collapse. Their entire empire was coming apart. Captain Day-Wan had become a ghost story among alien forces. His stealth frigate, the Retribution, specialized in impossible missions. He struck deep behind enemy lines, destroying supply convoys, sabotaging shipyards, and assassinating high-ranking military commanders. His favorite tactic was to drift silently near major shipping lanes, powered down and invisible. When a target passed by, the Retribution would wake up like a predator, strike with devastating speed, and disappear before anyone could respond. Day-Wan's crew developed a reputation. Alien captains started calling them the Death Shadow. There were rumors that Day-Wan could pass through shields, that his ship could become invisible, that he knew where you would be before you got there. Most of the rumors weren't true, but Day-Wan didn't mind. Fear was a weapon too. The aliens finally understood the threat. 9 major species formed the Coalition of United Species. Their goal was simple: destroy humanity before the rebellion spread further. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, 5,000 warships from every major species, all united against Earth. Chancellor Vecthar commanded the coalition fleet personally. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the holographic display showing thousands of ships. This was overwhelming force. This would end the human uprising. Set course for the Sol system, he ordered. We will burn Earth to ashes and scatter humanity across the void. They will learn what happens when animals forget their place. The coalition fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading directly for Earth. Scouts reported the fleet composition to human intelligence. Admiral Taeyang studied the numbers in his command center. 5,000 ships against humanity's 400. The odds were terrible. They're coming here, Ambassador Jiwoo said, her voice tight with fear. They're going to attack Earth directly. I know, Taeyang said calmly. I expected they would. How can you be calm? They outnumber us 10-1. Tae-yang smiled, and it was not a kind smile, because they're doing exactly what I want them to do. They're bringing their entire fleet to our home, to the one place in the galaxy where we have every possible advantage. He turned to his communication officer. Send the recall order. Every human ship returns to Sol immediately. Activate the Sol Defense Network. Contact Engineer Jae-hyun and tell him to power up Luna's fist. What are you planning? Ji-woo asked. They think we're cornered. They think we're desperate. Good. Let them think it all the way to their graves. This is our home, Ambassador. We've had 30 years to prepare for this exact moment, and we will bury them in it. The Ghost Fleet began jumping back to Earth from across the galaxy. Commander Bora received the recall order and smiled grimly. The decisive battle was coming. Good. She was tired of raids and skirmishes. It was time to end this war. Captain Dae-won and the Retribution joined the fleet gathering around Earth. Young-soo and the liberated colonists volunteered to help defend the orbital stations. General Haewon's ground forces prepared to repel boarders. Misun's rebellion continued to spread, but she sent a message of support. Humanity's allies would fight in their own sectors, tying down enemy reinforcements. The coalition fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system 3 days later. 5,000 ships against Earth. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and Admiral Tae-yang was ready. The medical supplies sat in neat rows inside the cargo bay of the Resilient Dawn. Captain Dae-won checked the manifest one more time. 300 doses of the vaccine, enough to save the colony on Kepler Station. The plague had already killed 2,000 people there, and more were dying every day. Dae-won was tired. He had been hauling cargo across human space for 20 years now, watching his people suffer while the alien species grew fat on their labor. But this run was different. These supplies meant life or death for the colonists. His hands trembled slightly as he sealed the cargo bay door. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth behind. The journey would take 3 days. Dae-won sat in his captain's chair and stared at the stars streaking past. His crew of 12 worked quietly around him. They all knew what this mission meant. On the second day, the alarm screamed. 3 Vraxel warships dropped out of nowhere, surrounding the Resilient Dawn. Their vessels were huge, black things that looked like metal predators. The communication channel crackled to life. Human vessel, prepare to be boarded. You carry priority resources that have been reallocated to Vraxel military operations. Dae-won felt his stomach drop. Those are medical supplies for a dying colony. People will die without them. The Vraxel commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Human concerns are not our priority. You have 60 seconds to comply or we will open fire. Dae-won looked at his crew. They all knew what would happen if they resisted. The Vraxel would destroy them without a second thought. He gave the order to shut down their engines. The Vraxel boarding party took everything. Every single dose. When Dae-won tried to explain to beg, they struck him across the face. He fell to the deck, blood running from his split lip. Your species exists to serve human. Remember your place. Then they destroyed his engines. Just blew them apart with a single blast. They left the Resilient Dawn drifting in empty space with no way to move. No way to call for help. Dae-won watched them jump away with the medicine that would have saved thousands of lives. His communications officer, a young woman named Hyejin, managed to get a distress signal out using the emergency beacon. But it would be days before anyone could reach them. Dae-won sat on the cold deck and put his face in his hands. Far away on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Ji-woo stood before the assembled representatives of 40 alien species. She had prepared for this moment for months. The petition in her hands represented the hopes of every human alive. The human species formally requests basic rights: the right to maintain defensive military forces, the right to refuse forced labor quotas that exceed safe working conditions, the right to keep a fair portion of resources extracted from our own colonies. The council chamber fell silent. Then the laughter started. It rolled through the room like thunder. The Vraxel representative, Chancellor Vekthar, stood from his seat. He was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with skin like armored plates. Rights? His voice boomed. You speak of rights? Species that cannot defend themselves have no rights to claim. You are domesticated animals playing at civilization. You should be grateful we allow you to serve. Without us, you would still be crawling in the dirt of your homeworld. Ji-woo felt her face burn with shame, but she held her ground. We have proven ourselves capable. We have contributed to galactic society for 47 years. We ask only for basic dignity and fair treatment. A Thalric counselor waved one of its tentacles dismissively. Your contribution is manual labor and resource extraction. This is all your species is suited for. The petition is denied. Unanimously. The word hit Jiwoo like a physical blow. Unanimously. Not a single species had voted in humanity's favor. Not one. She left the council chamber with her head high, but once she was alone in the corridor, she leaned against the wall and struggled to breathe. 47 years. They had been part of the galactic community for 47 years, and still they were treated like slaves, like animals. On Kepler Station, Young-Soo wiped sweat from his face and went back to swinging his mining pick. The tunnels were hot and filled with dust that made every breath painful. Around him, hundreds of other human workers chipped away at the rock, extracting the rare minerals that powered alien technology. The Thalric overseers floated above them, watching with their cold eyes. They never came down into the tunnels, never breathed the toxic air or felt the heat. They just watched and counted the output, demanding more, always more. Young-Soo's friend collapsed beside him. The man had been coughing blood for a week, but the overseers refused to let him stop working. Young-Soo caught him before he hit the ground. "I need a medical team down here," Young-Soo shouted up at the overseers. "Return to work. Production quotas must be met. He's dying. Then remove the body and return to work." Young-Soo felt something break inside him. He had worked in these mines for 8 years. He had watched friends die. He had breathed poison and bled and broken bones, all to make alien corporations rich. And they called his friend's body something to be removed like trash. That night there was a cave-in. The overseers had ignored the safety warnings, pushed them to dig too deep into unstable rock. The tunnel collapsed and 200 workers were buried alive. Young-Soo survived only because he had been in a side passage. He dug with his bare hands until they bled, trying to reach the others, but it was too late. The overseers shut down the rescue operation after 6 hours. Not enough time. Not nearly enough time. Young-Soo stood covered in dust and blood, staring at the collapsed tunnel that had become a mass grave. He went to the communications center and sent a message to his sister on Earth. Haye Jin was a communications officer, one of the few humans allowed to work off-world. His message was simple. "They're killing us and no one cares. How much longer do we bow?" Ambassador Jiwoo returned to Earth 3 days later. She went straight to a secret meeting location in the mountains outside the capital. Admiral Taeyang was waiting for her. He was an old man with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. "Tell me," he said simply. The vote was unanimous. Humanity will never be equals. We either kneel forever or we stand and burn. Taeyang was quiet for a long moment. He walked to the window and looked out at the mountains. Somewhere beneath those mountains, hidden in bunkers carved from solid rock, was humanity's secret. 30 years of preparation. 30 years of building in shadow while pretending to be weak and helpless. Captain Daewon's ship was attacked yesterday, Taeyang said quietly. They took medical supplies meant for plague victims. Left his crew to drift and die. How many more? Jiwoo asked. How many more have to suffer? How many more have to die? Taeyang turned to face her. That ends now. Contact the fleet commanders. Tell them to activate Protocol Ragnarok. Tell them it's time. Jiwoo felt her heart hammering. You're sure? Once we start this, there's no going back. I'm sure, Taeyang said. His voice was hard as steel. They wanted to keep us as slaves. They wanted us to kneel forever. But humanity has knelt long enough. Now we stand, and if they try to push us back down, then we burn the galaxy if we must. Jiwoo left to send the messages. Admiral Taeyang remained at the window, watching the sunset paint the sky red. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn that humanity had finally said enough, and the war would ignite without warning. The messages went out at midnight, coded transmissions that meant nothing to anyone watching. But across human space, military commanders received them and understood. 3 decades of waiting were over. Protocol Ragnarok was active. In the asteroid belt beyond Mars, the first shipyard powered up. It had been built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to scanning. Lights flickered on and massive bay doors opened. The first ship emerged into the darkness of space. Then another, then 10 more, then 100. Commander Bora stood on the bridge of the indomitable Spirit, watching her fleet assemble around her. 200 warships built in secret over 30 years. The Ghost Fleet. Every captain, every crew member had trained for this moment. They were ready. All ships report ready, Commander, her tactical officer said. Bora looked at the holographic display showing her fleet. These ships didn't look like the sleek alien vessels. They were blocky, ugly things covered in armor plating. They used old-fashioned chemical rockets alongside newer gravity drives. Their weapons were simple railguns and missiles, nothing fancy. The aliens thought humans were primitive for building such ships. They were wrong. Open fleet-wide communication, Bora ordered. Every screen in every ship showed her face. She saw hundreds of officers and crew members looking back at her. Young faces and old faces, men and women who had volunteered knowing they might never see their families again. For 30 years we've hidden in the dark, Bora said. We've built these ships while pretending to be helpless. We've studied our enemies while they laughed at us. They think we're weak. They think we're stupid. They think we'll never fight back. Today we show them the truth. Today humanity strikes back. The fleet roared its approval. Bora felt pride swell in her chest. These were her people. Earth's warriors finally unleashed. On Earth, in a bunker complex that officially didn't exist, Dr. Kyung-soo made final checks on his life's work. The Prometheus Project, 30 years of research into weapons that could match or beat alien technology. He walked through the research labs, seeing the fruits of decades of secret work. Railguns that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds, fast enough to punch through any shield. Nuclear warheads redesigned with antimatter triggers. Tiny machines called nanites that could eat through ship hulls like acid. Drone fighters controlled by artificial intelligence that thought faster than any living pilot. Are we ready? Admiral Tae-yang asked, appearing beside him. As ready as we'll ever be, Kyung-soo said. He was an old man now, his hair white, his hands shaking slightly. But his mind was still sharp. The aliens designed their weapons to be efficient. We designed ours to be devastating. Will it be enough? Kyung-soo smiled grimly. They're about to find out. In another facility, Jin-woo sat surrounded by computer screens. He was young, only 25, but he was a genius with computer systems. For 3 years, he had been quietly breaking into alien communication networks, planning programs that would activate when needed, learning their systems inside and out. He cracked his knuckles and began typing. His programs went active. Across hundreds of star systems, alien communication networks started crashing. Vraxel military channels went dark. Thalric fleet coordination collapsed. False intelligence reports began flooding through their computers. Jin-woo watched the chaos spread and allowed himself a small smile. Let them try to coordinate a defense when they couldn't even talk to each other. Captain Daewon woke up on a rescue ship. His head pounded and his body ached. The resilient Dawn and his crew had been rescued by a human military vessel. But not the kind of military vessel anyone knew existed. A woman in a black uniform stood beside his bed. Captain Daewon, I'm Commander Bora. How are you feeling? Confused. What kind of ship is this? The kind that's going to make the Vraxil pay for what they did to you, Bora said. We're offering you a choice. We can take you to a safe station where you can recover, or you can join the fight. Daewon sat up, ignoring the pain. Fight? What fight? Bora smiled. The one that started an hour ago. Humanity just declared war on every species that's been using us as slaves. We're done being victims. Daewon thought of his destroyed ship, his stolen cargo, the colonists who had died because of it. What do you need me to do? We have a ship that needs a captain. A stealth frigate called the Retribution. Interested? Daewon stood up, still unsteady. When do I start? The first battle happened at a Vraxil military station orbiting a gas giant. A patrol fleet of 10 Vraxil warships was docked there, refueling. They had no idea that 20 human ships had dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside sensor range. The human ships moved in complete silence, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible. They got within firing range before the Vraxil knew they were there. Commander Bora gave the order. All ships open fire. The railgun spoke first. Massive projectiles moving at impossible speeds. The Vraxil shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against solid metal moving at a fraction of light speed. The first volley destroyed 5 Vraxil ships before they could even power up their weapons. The remaining ships tried to fight back, but human vessels were smaller and faster. They dodged and weaved, their pilots reacting with split-second timing. Missiles streaked through space and more Vraxil ships exploded. The entire battle lasted 4 minutes. 10 Vraxil warships destroyed, 0 human losses. Bora watched the debris field on her screens. Send the footage to every news network in the galaxy. Let them see what happens when you push humanity too far. The recording went viral across alien networks within hours. Species that had laughed at humans for decades suddenly saw Earth's warriors destroying a Vraxil fleet with terrifying efficiency. The footage showed human ships moving with deadly grace, their weapons ripping through Vraxil armor like paper. In the Galactic Council chambers, Chancellor Vekthar watched the footage with disbelief. This is impossible. Humans don't have military ships. They don't have weapons like this. Apparently they do, one of his advisors said quietly. Vekthar's rage was volcanic. Find out where these ships came from. Find their shipyards, their bases, everything, and prepare the fleet. If humans want war, we'll give them extinction. But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Human ships were hitting targets across Vraxil space. Supply depots destroyed. Communication stations blown apart. Patrol fleets ambushed and annihilated. Ambassador Jiwoo stood in Admiral Taeyang's command center, watching the holographic display of the galaxy. Red dots showed human attacks. There were dozens of them, all happening at once. It's really happening, she whispered. Yes, Taeyang said, and there's no turning back now. We either win our freedom, or we die fighting for it. Commander Bora's fleet jumped to their next target. Captain Daewon took command of the Retribution and began his first stealth mission. Dr. Kyung-soo's weapons were distributed to every human ship. Jinwoo's programs continued to spread chaos through alien networks. Humanity had been preparing for this war for 3 decades. They had studied, planned, built, and trained while everyone thought they were weak and helpless. Now the mask was off. The message spread through the galaxy. Humanity was done kneeling. They had finally said enough, and they were coming with fire and fury. In the ruins of the Vraxil military station, a single escape pod drifted away. Inside, a Vraxil officer recorded a message. His voice shook with fear as he spoke. They came out of nowhere. They destroyed us in minutes. These aren't the humans we knew. These are killers. We underestimated them. By all the stars, we underestimated them badly. The war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.